This conference will now be recorded.
All right. So, welcome to Online Scams and Fraud. A little bit about what we're going to be covering today. We're going to go over different types of scams, in particular, phishing and social engineering. We'll go over the signs to notice when a scam may be happening. Of course, how to protect ourselves once we've identified some fraud, how to keep our accounts and devices safe from online scams, also how to respond when we see a scam and how to report one as well. And then finally, we will be going over some fantastic skills for creating strong passwords that you can also remember. So here we've got just that general idea we often think of when you think of how someone gets hacked. It's someone in a dark basement somewhere running a lot of computers, targeting you. But often we can actually end up getting hacked because we are not protecting ourselves, or sometimes without realizing it, giving away some very valuable information about ourselves. So in this example here, we see some questions you might find on different social media sites, things that are meant or seem to be meant just as sort of fun social communications, but to someone with a more negative intention, they may be a great way to discern some information that will potentially help them find out what our passwords are or get past security questions with our different accounts, things like that. So, typical victim of an online scam. If you ask anyone that, they might have a different version of someone in mind that they think of as who gets taken by these sorts of things. But might actually be good to know that there is no typical victim. Unfortunately, anyone can be susceptible to online scams and fraud. Your education doesn't factor in, your age doesn't factor in. Why this is? Because different scams target different groups of people. And here we see an example um, regarding financial scams. You actually find that the victim profile for an investment fraud victim is interesting a middle aged, educated, financially literate white male, and that the other variable that comes up in that profile is that they are under some financial strain. So you may not assume that someone who fits the initial parts of that profile would fall victim to an online scam, but when you factor in that they may have some financial strain, that these are, in this particular case, investment fraud. So they're targeting people who are in that world, and they are a little bit more susceptible because of that financial strain. So why do people fall for online scams? There's a few things at play here. There's persuasion, and we're going to talk about the 6 principles of influence that are often at play when someone falls for a scam. Reciprocity, commitment and consistency, social proof, authority, liking, scarcity, and we're going to talk in more detail and get a better understanding of what all those mean. So here we see a scam that focuses on reciprocity. In this case, if I give you some information, I will get a free pizza, right? So that's my desire to return a favor because I feel indebted to you. So now in this case, maybe it's not actually Pizza Hut trying to get a personal or trying to offer personal pizzas, might be someone pretending to be, and with the promise of receiving something from them, I am willing to give information I might not normally. Here we see a scam that is working on commitment and consistency. I know it's a bit small, but if you're able to see here, in this one, there is a text message going on between a potential renter and the homeowner. And in this case, they're saying, how serious are you with this rental? Because most replies I get are compromised. And the last time I leased my house, I sent the keys first and they never sent me payment and I called the police. So I'm not going to give you anything until I've gotten part of the rent. Paraphrasing there. So in this case, the potential property owner, who likely doesn't actually have any property to be renting, is hoping that by you seeing yourself as someone who would not act as this other person did, that you would want to um, stay committed to what you had said you would do, in this case, renting the place, and that your personal view of yourself would remain consistent. So here the scammer exploits the customer's desire to honor commitments and follow through on them. And if you are able to read through in that green text, well, luckily this particular customer is not falling for it. So again, they're preying on your desire to appear consistent with your previously stated beliefs, attitudes, values, and behaviors. Now here we see social proof. Social proof is your desire to follow the lead of people that you are similar to by emulating their behaviors. So in this case, someone is trying to look as though they have connections that they may not actually have, or they may be very loose connections. What we see here is that most of these are third level connections, so they're not really very close. But this person may be presenting themselves as having a social standing that isn't quite genuine, hoping that that will convince us that they are worth putting some trust into. So again, here, this is an employment scam, created a fake LinkedIn profile to connect with quote unquote colleagues who do work with the company. So just something to look out for there. You in a case like this, you would want to be sure that people are actually first level connections. And then here we've got some examples of an authority scam. So authority is when someone may be posing as a legitimate company or a person, organization that you are already familiar with. So in this case, we have a tendency to comply with individuals and entities perceived as having influence, credibility, and power. So here in these examples, we're led to believe that this is an Airbnb and a PayPal communication, that we owe money. So we may be more likely, because those are credible organizations or companies that we are familiar with, to go ahead and give what they are asking for. However, if we look closely, we can see, as you see circled in the Airbnb email, that's not really coming from Airbnb. It's someone's Gmail address that is posing as the company Airbnb. So we would see that and know immediately, nope, that's not legitimate. I can go ahead and delete that. With the PayPal scam, while this very much looks like a PayPal email, there's some minor errors in here. We don't see the sending address in this particular example, but you can see that some of the text is not quite written the way that it should be. So a sign that something might be a little bit off. And here we have an online scam that is leveraging liking. So in this particular one, someone is reaching out to people who they may have gathered some information, are likely to share some beliefs of theirs, and they are posing as a pastor, trying to lead you to believe that there's someone who's, in a role that's part of the community, that they may be doing positive work. But if we look through, we can see in some of these circled areas that a lot of this is written in a way to suggest that it's not from a real person, that a lot of or not from a legitimate person. So often a first red flag, if not an email address posing as someone else in these kind of communications, is that the text itself just does not read like it's been written clearly by someone who's really trying to communicate. In this case, they're also immediately trying to get money from us, which is always a bit of a red flag. And something to note here is that in this particular example, if you look at the yellow rectangle up at the top, we see that this was already caught as a potential spam email, which we'll talk more about in a moment, by the user's email provider. So often, hopefully, scam emails get caught before you even get to opening them. Not always, but again, so this one falls into the principle of liking. So this is where a scammer will prey on your tendency to comply with people that you are similar to or that you like. So again, the email list that this person's sending things out to, probably hoping to find folks who would be more inclined to align with them. And then here we see the principle of scarcity. So we've got this protect now, act now, there's a discount. If you don't make this purchase right now, you may not get to keep that discount. So things meant to bring some concern, make us think we need to act more quickly than we likely need to, which often keeps us from thinking very clearly. So scarcity is the desire for something that is limited in supply or to comply with an action that is time sensitive. Another thing to notice here is that this particular website was designed to look like it belongs to a legitimate company. So we see this is sort of mixing scarcity and authority. However, if we look at the actual URL in the address bar over here, it's not a McAfee website as the page design would have us believe. It's something else. And so we can, just like when you look at a scam email and you see that the sender is not who they say they are, if you are brought to a website and you're not sure, make sure that what you see in the URL is actually what you expected it to be. So a bit more on encountering scams. It can happen, right? It happens to everyone at one time or another. They can pop up not just on websites or in emails. You can get text messages with scams, really any kind of connected, as in connected to the web device. So your laptop, your desktop, your smartphone, tablet, even video game consoles. And you've probably heard the term spam. Any unwanted email advertisements are spam or junk mail. On the most basic level, they're a little bit frustrating because they can make it difficult to find the emails you want to read, but often they also can be a first level of a scam. So two main types of scams: phishing and social engineering. So spam is typically a first step towards a phishing scam. It may also include some malware. And generally, the goal, regardless of how the scam comes to you, is going to be the same. They want, or the scammers are aiming to steal money or collect information and passwords that can then be sold again later for money. And just as a sort of added inconvenience, oftentimes these things can infect your computer with viruses or malware. But generally, they are things that are going to try to scan some information on as you're working on your computer, collect some details running in the background. So we'll talk a bit more about how you can look for signs of that. So phishing, what is it? How does it work? It's when scammers use fake emails or text messages to phish for information. So often, if let's say you get brought into this kind of scam via an email, it may take you to a fake website where they'll try to collect information, or they may try through the communication in the first place to win your trust. So again, that's like we saw, the liking, authorities that are going to try to build a connection. Claiming to be from a real organization, it's often very important, even if you think that you know the organization you're receiving this communication from, sounds kind of familiar, you think you've heard of them, open a new window on your computer, new browser, um, and go ahead and do a little search. See if it really is what you thought it was. They're going to ask for your information, and often you'll find that there's a promise of a larger sum of money if you provide a smaller sum early on. And excuse me, you may find, particularly with an email phishing scam, that there is an ask for downloading an attachment of some kind. Here we're going to go through a few examples. I'll just kind of run through these quickly. So in this case, if you saw an online contest to win $10,000 instantly, on the sign up form, you're asked to enter your name and email, but also your nickname, name of any pets, mom's maiden name. Does any of that seem a little bit off? Well, yeah, we wouldn't want to do that, because what those questions are getting at are common clues to figure out people's passwords. And if not determining your actual password, they may also be answers once someone is trying to log in, to move past the security question aspect of a login. So let's suppose you get a notice from Apple. It says there's a new security rule and you have to submit a social security number immediately or lose all of your photos. What would you do? Once again, don't do it. In this case, this is something that real companies would not do. You would get ample communication in advance, and they're not going to rush you into providing information. Aside from the fact that it'd be quite unusual for something like this to need your social security number, but just in general, if you're asked for information that seems a little more personal than what you would expect is necessary, look at how quickly they're saying they need it. Do a quick search to see, is there actually an update happening with the company that claims to be asking for this? You know, something like that. There should be a press release, a news article, something that you can verify. All right, next example. You see $200 wireless headphones for sale. Great deal, just $5. But the website, don't recognize, and it only takes credit cards. You can't use other forms of payment like most sites would allow. Is this something to buy, or is this something to take a pause and say, maybe this is too good to be true? Well, this is certainly going to be a little bit too good to be true. And we'll talk a bit more toward later on in the session about how you can ensure that the sites you're putting personal information like credit card details into are secure. But in this case, there should be some red flags that the credit card, the the payment options are not quite what you would expect them to be. A bit more about malware. That is malicious software, and it's used by scammers. Can take many different shapes. So you might find that you get an email from a scammer that when you open might force download a virus, something that can operate in the background on your computer. Maybe accidentally downloading this fake file. And we'll talk a bit in just a second about how this spyware or how you can be aware of the spyware. So are you noticing a lot of pop-up ads? Things are just maybe harder to close. They're taking longer to run. The device itself is just not working the way that it once did. Are you noticing any new icons on your computer? So perhaps your toolbar has something new in it. There's something else on your desktop that wasn't there before. Things like that can be a flag that maybe something has been installed when you weren't aware. If you are unsure if the website you are going to go to. So perhaps you get an email that you're not 100% confident about what it's at the website it's asking you to go to, but you're not, 0% either. So you want to do a double check. You can go to transparencyreport.google.com/safe-browsing/search. And through there, you can put in the URL to a website. So whether it's something that you're being asked to go to via an email you're not sure about, or it's a website you just for any reason might not feel 100% confident in, you can go ahead through there and double check to see if that site is noted as being safe. Social engineering. In this kind of scam, a person is or may claim to be someone that they are not. So they might tell you that they are a friend or a family member, and very likely they are in some kind of trouble. They may be a company with some too good to be true discount or offer. They may tell you that they're a government agency or some other authoritative, kind of intimidating organization that you might feel that you owe something to, so you don't want to get in trouble, right? In this case, you may notice they can reach you by phone, email, text. You might get these communications through social media. So, for example, if you suddenly get a friend request from someone who is claiming to be a family member that you haven't seen in a long time, and they have, like one picture on their profile, and the profile was just created, and you haven't heard from them in forever, you might want to double check, see if anybody has actually heard from that person. Did they really just start this profile? Is someone claiming to be them? Things like that. So when you think that perhaps something seems a little bit suspicious, always important to ask yourself, first, have I ever heard of this person? Have I ever heard of this organization? Do I need to do a little bit of digging before I engage? Can I tell where this communication is coming from? Is it like that example we saw with the fake Airbnb email, where it's actually coming from a different address? Is it a call that's claiming to be from someone I know, but it's blocking the number? Things like that. Does it look professional? This can be a bit tricky because it is increasingly easy to make a very professional, legitimate looking website, email, etc. that isn't legitimate. So that's where we want to look for those other details, like does the URL match what I expected it to be? Did the sending address match what I expected it to be? Things like that. Is this communication trying to get information from me? Are they trying to get money, especially if it's a first communication? Also, if someone's claiming to fix your computer and you haven't reached out, they're just saying, oh, we think there's something wrong, let's fix it. Download this, download that. It's best to instead bring it yourself to a place that you trust. And a key thing that you'll see is, are they trying to rush you into quick action? I think often we are well equipped to spot these scams, but as we saw with that very first example of the investment fraud scams, when we are not thinking clearly, when we are in a situation of particular stress, there's some kind of strain on us, then we may be more susceptible to rushing into action where we wouldn't normally. So here we're going to look at some other examples. We've got this claiming to be a Bank of America communication. It's a pretty good approximation of that. We've got the logo in there, dear customer. But here, first things first, we can see that the from address, if we look at the actual email, that's not quite right. That's saying that it's from Bank of American. So if we're able to look at that, then we know that's not something I need to worry about. I can delete this. But suppose that gets past us, we miss it. Some other issues we might find is that if we are in fact account holders with this company, they would probably be able to personalize this communication. You know, when you get an official communication from a bank, it should have your name in it, maybe an account number or the last four of one, something to verify that information. Are there spelling or grammar errors? In this case, it's kind of odd because they're telling us, you know, it's supposed to be our bank that would know what we have signed up for, but they're telling us also that we may be receiving this if we aren't enrolled in something, which you'd think that they might know. Uh, so in a case like this, where you might not be 100% sure if it's a scam or not, best practice would be to go directly to the organization that is being leveraged in this potential scam. You know, for in this case, reach out to your bank by calling their customer service line directly, not using any phone numbers or links that are in the email communication you're suspicious of. So opening a separate window, or going to an existing communication you've gotten from them, maybe a physical bill you've gotten, something like that, so that you can reach out and say, this is a communication I got. Is this legitimate? If it is, great. If it isn't, not only have you verified that, but you've made them aware of the fact that this scam is going on. And we have another quick example. This is meant to convince us that there is a small amount of money that we're entitled to from the IRS. So this is one of those examples of, oh, if I do a little bit upfront, I'm going to get something for me. So in this case, I needed to fill out a form in order to get this refund. Odds are, if you were to follow through with the links on that, your form is going to ask for some personal information that will be of much more use to a hacker than you know, to anything else, and that you're probably not going to get that tax refund. How do we know that this is something suspicious? Well, for one thing, in this case, that the from address is not a government email. Anything that's claiming to be a government organization should have a .gov address. So in this case, the IRS is not going to email you from a .com, and you can just feel confident that that is in fact not worth your time. Delete it and move on. This is another one. We've got this email from the pharmacy. They're telling us that our points are about to expire, so we got to use them. We have to follow through on this link that we can't see where it's going to take us. They're trying to get us to another site. So some things here, do we have an account with this? Once again, we see it's a little bit odd that they haven't addressed us in any formal way. There's nothing about our current point totals. So it's just a few minor things that would be easy to ignore if you're anxious that your points are about to run out. So taking that deep breath, saying, let me just think clearly about this for a second. Would they actually be getting rid of everything that I've earned right away? Probably not. There's probably a little bit of time between that. So there's no note of when our points are expiring. So just those common things to think of can kind of help you to realize whoever's sending this, they're trying to rush me into an action, and maybe I don't need to. All right, so just a little bit more on this. If you're getting emails or texts or any other kind of communication that just seems too good to be true, trust yourself, it probably is. A few more examples of social engineering. Here we've got the same message, I've highlighted some key points. And here we have this message first. Do we actually know the person that it's coming from, right? So this is meant to look a bit like maybe it's a text or maybe it's a communication in a social site. And they are just using a general greeting. So they might be sending this out to a large group of people. There's also, if we look at this carefully, it's really kind of a generic message, right? It's Gramps, no name, drop them off at an airport, didn't say what airport, where they're going, anything like that. Basically, they are having us feel that they are in a stressful, urgent situation and that they need some money and will pay us back. So this is kind of combining a few different things. We've got consistency. We would want to be a trustworthy person. This is likely meant to be to seem as though they are someone who we know and we like. Um, and we are led to feel that, oh, if I do this small thing up front, I will be paid back later. So they're really kind of playing on a couple of different emotions there. Here, this, as opposed to being a direct message, is likely something that is a pop-up communication, right? So you maybe win VIP passes to a show and an amount of money that seems nearly impossible to actually be able to win, particularly through a pop-up ad online, if something like that just seems too good to be true. So right there. But some other key things to notice, one, the spelling and grammar is a bit off. And instead of taking us to a website that maybe is associated with the actual show that it's claiming to be connected to, it's taking us to an abbreviated URL. So in that case, they're masking where they're really taking us. And so that may be bringing us to a site where we'll download malware. It may be taking us to a site where we have to fill out a form to find out if we're the instant winner. So things like that, just better to hit the X on that ad and call it a day. This is another one. It's meant to look like a social communication. So it's coming through as a text message, but it's supposed to be connected to an app, in this case, Snapchat. A few red flags here, some spelling issues. They don't know our name or our username, right? Instead of it being a push notification from the app that is downloaded to our phone, we're getting a text message. So that could be coming from anyone. And they're again trying to get us to a website that we can't really see the name of. So instead of it being something official where we're seeing, HTTPS www.snapchat.com, whatever it might be, it's this ver.ifi.link. So then really they're asking for our password. So in this case, they're hoping that we will give that information away and let them log in through there. And we'll talk again more about password security and why that is so important in a little bit. Here, this one, they're hoping that we will go ahead and share our contact list in order to get everyone a pizza. This is for sure one that seems too good to be true. But also, why do this? Well, if we share our contact list, that's a whole bunch of new people that this scam can now reach out to. So they're really broadening their reach through this. And here we've got another one with some similar to the previous, with some spelling errors, some inconsistencies in the way that they're claiming their own company's name is written. So this, you'll notice Instagram is written in a few different ways here. And just like with the Snapchat example, if you're getting a message that is actually from an app or a social site that you have an account with, it would be directly from them. You also get a communication to the email address your address is connected to. As we see here, this is a comment. So they're not going to reach out to every single user via a comment. And again, if we look at the highlighted section, failure to do what they're asking in 24 hours is going to get rid of all of our photos. They are rushing us into action so that we will not think clearly. And notice all of the spelling errors in here as well. We'll talk a bit about spam filters. So when we are getting emails that are questionable, right? Most often, hopefully, your email provider is identifying those things before they ever get to you and moving them into the spam folder. Something to keep in mind, it's not a perfect science. Legitimate, real emails that maybe you've been waiting for can end up in your spam folder. And of course, spam can end up in your primary folder. So checking that every so often, just to, especially if you're waiting for a particular communication, to make sure things aren't getting lost, is a good habit to get into. And spam messages, so those annoying messages, they often contain images. And so by opening the email, they're able to note that the image has been viewed, and it lets them know that someone, they reached a person and that they can continue to send things there. So an additional precaution you might find useful is to update your email settings, asking or so that they ask before images load. And so here we see an example. This is from a Gmail address that you can just in your settings have it so that images have to be turned on by you. And then what do we do when we start getting these messages? If you're able to identify before you even open them or once you open them, go ahead and select the little checkbox next to where you'll find the sender's information and indicate that that is spam. So it varies slightly from email provider, but generally it's going to be something that kind of looks like an alert or a stop sign, maybe an exclamation point, maybe kind of looks like a caution sign, something along those lines. And that will move the unwanted email into spam. Oh, and just an additional point here, by you doing that, it's also helping your email service provider understand that that communication is spam and that it should be aware of other communications from that sender or with that subject line, things like that should be moved to spam as well. So when we're looking at websites that seem suspicious for any number of reasons, again, you want to open a new browser, new tab, whatever, and do a little digging. Search for information about that site. So you might want to search them and, scam, fraud, news, any of those terms to help you see if there's something going on with them. Check the address bar, as we said. So double check that where you are is where you thought you would be. So like we saw in the McAfee example, sometimes a website may look like something else. And then also look for minor changes. So here we see an example of a domain that might look legitimate, but maybe it's name.com.scam.com. In that case, the very last .com is the legitimate one. So sometimes you might find things with like .co, but maybe the site you're expecting to go to is actually a .com, different things like that. Some signs of legitimate websites. You're going to see the HTTPS. If you don't see the S, if you don't see the little, sorry, where's my mouse? There we go. The lock symbol that's closed, that lets you know that that's probably not a place you want to go putting your credit card information or personal information. So that's most commonly on payment pages. So you might be on other pages of a website that don't have it, but when you get to the payment or the account setup, wherever you're putting sensitive information, you should see the HTTPS. And then some other tips, does the quality of the website match what you would expect from that organization? Is contact information easy to find? Are they trying to make it difficult for you to be able to reach out to them if you have questions, things like that? Just to wrap up, some don'ts. You don't want to give out any personal information, of course. Don't want to reply or engage. That might be tempting to say, hey, stop sending me these things. It's just going to indicate to them that they have reached a person and to continue to send information. If you get a communication that seems suspicious, delete it. Don't click on any links. Don't download any files or attachments. Again, those may be leading to malware. And similarly, avoiding clicking on any buttons. Some things you can do: trust yourself, be skeptical, right? Move that email into your spam folder. Read things carefully. Look for those little details we discussed that can help you identify if something is not quite what it's claiming to be. Go directly to the company, organization, whatever's website. See if you can find any verifying information. Just a tip here, if you're getting a lot of pop-ups and you want to close them, you're concerned that maybe you're going to accidentally click on something you don't want to. On a PC, Alt F4 will close your windows, and on a Mac, Command W. And then, so supposing a scam does get to us, we've done all the right things, and now we want to see what the last thing we can do here. You can report scams. So you can send these to reportfraud.ftc.gov, and that can help the Federal Trade Commission become more aware of or collect information on these scams. Unfortunately, they're often very difficult to track down, so any information helps, but it's of course not, unfortunately, not a guarantee that something will definitely be able to be done, but it's worth trying to help. Briefly on social media, just keeping up with your privacy settings on your different accounts. Those things can be updated by the companies. So just going in every so often and making sure that if there have been any changes, which you would usually get an email communication telling you that there's been a change to their privacy policy, that you are still maintaining the privacy at a level you are comfortable with. Setting up two-factor authentication, which we'll talk a bit more about with passwords. Just being aware of what you're posting and who can see it, that you're not giving away too much information about things. And like we talked about at the very, very beginning, those quizzes, contests, just kind of fun posts where you're giving fun information, making sure you're not giving away information that might let someone know some common things that could lead to understanding what your password might be or your security questions. And like we saw with some of those social engineering examples, avoiding connecting with people who are not or who you don't know in real life. So if you don't know them in real life, it's probably best to leave it at that on social media as well. And just a quick on public Wi-Fi. So for example, if you are at a cafe or at a library or wherever you might be, often now we will have Wi-Fi available at different locations. So making sure that you are in fact using the Wi-Fi provided by the institution that you're in. Usually they will have the hotspot name and the login information posted somewhere if it is available to everyone. So that way you're making sure you're on a real account or the actual Wi-Fi account. Turning on your firewall if you're going to do anything really anything sensitive or just in general, so that it's harder for people to hack into your space. Making sure that you don't have any network discovery or printer sharing features turned on. And even just as simple as not leaving your computer physically unattended while you are logged in. So that no one can get there and go to a website, and get your information that way. And just to wrap up on this one, if you are interested in learning a little bit more about antivirus software, things like that, these are just some recommendations from Consumer Reports in 2021. So, and we of course have access to that through the library. So if you need any more information on those. I'm going to go ahead and hand this over.
I'm here to talk to you about passwords. And my name's Corina. I'm a reference librarian at West Windsor. And here's what we're going to cover. It's a pretty brief presentation, but I'm going to tell you what makes a strong password and, excuse me, tricks for making a password that you can actually remember. And then briefly, I'll talk about how to add an extra layer of security to your accounts and a way to forget all of your passwords except for one, which is a password manager, but spoiler alert. Okay, so hopping in, I felt like talking about passwords in a cybersecurity basics class was important because there's something that we're all already doing anyway, no matter what. Of course, we're forced to if we have accounts, but it's something that a lot of us could do better. So what we're seeing on the screen now is a quilt, a picture of a quilt. So this is a quilt called Security Blanket, which was made by a security researcher named Lori Faith Cranor. And Security blankets are an example of something that makes us feel safe, but is not actually protecting us at all. And that is true for the very common weak passwords that we see on this quilt. She quilted, I don't know precisely what her methodology was, but some of the most common passwords within a certain subset on this quilt. So, um, how does someone guess your password? There's a few different ways. A human who knows things about you, like your birthday or your nickname, might be able to guess your password, especially if we're looking at this quilt and your name is Nicole or Jessica, or maybe you're dating someone named Michael or Daniel or Michelle. If someone knows that about you, that would be easy to guess. Another way that people can get your password is rather than a human, a computer can guess your password hundreds of thousands of times a second. Um, and to go back to something that Joanna mentioned, malware getting on your computer, one of the things, malware can do lots and lots of things, but one of the things it can do is it can enroll your computer into what's called a botnet. And that is a network of computers that have all been hacked, all have the same malware, and they're all running processes in the background while you're using your computer. And that network of computers, the botnet, can guess passwords hundreds of thousands of times a second. And also it will slow down your computer. Um, Finally, so those were two, computer guessing or a botnet and a human who knows things about you. The other way your password can be stolen is if there's a data breach at a company where you have a password. In that case, huge lists of passwords could be sold online or even just dumped on the internet. And buyers of those passwords will then try the passwords on other websites. So, given that information, how people get your password, what makes a bad password? This is a list. It's a little bit old, I'll be honest, but I think the information is still basically the same. Of the 50 most used passwords out of a data set of 10 million passwords from data dumps on the internet. So, um, what are some things that we noticed about these passwords? If we were live in class, I'd have you shout it out, but since we are digital, I will just point out a few things we can learn from this list. First, I would say a lot of these are short words and words that are very simple, things that we could find in the dictionary, words that might refer to someone's loved one or a pet, and things we like. So I see someone might like Superman or Mustang. Maybe their nickname is Monkey, or the nickname of a loved one is Monkey. We also see some strings of numbers and letters, some of which, well, of course, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 is not random. Some of these might appear a little bit random. If you look at number 4, QWERTY is a nonsense word, or number 30, that looks like nonsense. But if you look at the keyboard that it might be in front of you, if you're on a computer, you can see the top row of keys starts with Q, W, E, R, T, Y. And then if you look at number 30, 1QAZ, well, that's just going down diagonally and then diagonally again. So I'll explain in a minute why that's not very secure, including because it's so common. All of these passwords would be very easy to guess in what's called a dictionary attack. And that's where a system, a computer or a botnet can go through a dictionary of words and make 300,000 guesses at your password per second. Using just the top 10 of these passwords, a hacker could, on average, guess 16 out of 1,000 passwords. Um, and these are also things that would be easy to guess, not by a computer, but by someone who knows you, who knows, I don't know, that you have a dog named Dragon or something like that. So these are bad passwords, meaning they're easy to guess or to find. So what makes a good password? How do you have a good password? Um, a strong password um, is a function of three different things: strength, complexity, and unpredictability. the longer, more complex, and more unpredictable your password is, the harder it is to guess, either by a human or a computer. Um, so we'll go through each of these in turn. Longer is always better. Truly, just keep typing. Some websites do limit you to the number of characters, which I find annoying, but generally just keep going, make it long. Um, to have a complex password, this is something some websites force you to do, some don't, but you'll have a combination of lowercase letters, capital letters, numbers, and special characters, and so on. That's more complex than like a single word in the dictionary, for example. Um, and I'll come back to never repeat in a second. I kind of had that out of order. Do not use a password that includes personal information, like your name, your spouse's name, birthdays, addresses. That's something that people who know you will know. Hopefully, no one you know is going to hack you, but that's one concern. But also, if some of that information is very easy to find online, whether it's public on social media or it's obtained through one of the scams that Joanna was talking about. Um, and don't use a single word that can be found in the dictionary. We want it to be more unpredictable than that. And to go back, I'll say there's a really important reason why you should never use the same password twice. First of all, that's predictable. But also, as I said, one way a hacker might get your password or someone with malintent might get your password is because a large company was hacked. Let's say you have an account at PlayStation. That's a company that was hacked. Um, and hackers were able to steal, I'm not sure how many, but many, probably hundreds of thousands of passwords, login information, and it was then sold on the internet. Um, what people who buy passwords like that are going to do, they don't want to just get into somebody's PlayStation account. They will then test that login information, those passwords and usernames against other websites because so many people reuse their passwords. And so if you have reused your password and someone has gotten into your PlayStation account, well, that might be bad, but you don't want them also to be able to get into your email or also get into your bank account or also get into your social media accounts. So if something we can't always control, hopefully large companies are protecting our information, but bad things happen, but you want that to be limited to a single event instead of uh, ricocheting across all of your accounts. So don't use the same password twice. Um, so I think this makes sense. And as intelligent people, we can all obviously make super strong, hard to guess passwords that are really long and really complicated. But the problem is, how many passwords do we all have? We probably have, a lot of us have hundreds. I had to create one just the other day because I wanted to buy concert tickets. Maybe I'll never, shop at that place again, but now they have an account with my information in it. So, um, how do you remember all of these very long and complex passwords? That I think is the challenge, and that's why people are so tempted to use simple passwords or to reuse them. So I have two strategies that I'm going to share tonight that will help you create passwords that are strong but easy to remember. So the first one is uh, called passphrases, or sometimes called diceware, which is why I have my adorable dice dogs here. Um, so I will demonstrate this, but to tell you basically what you do is you are creating a phrase of words instead of a single word as your password, and you do it randomly. Um, uh, Humans can be predictable, so we're going to get around that by using some actual randomness. So we are going to use a list of words, which I'll show you. We're going to roll 5 dice, and the numbers on those dice are going to correspond with a word. And we're going to do that several times until we have a very long password. So let me show you. Because we're on the internet, I don't have actual dice. If you have actual dice, you can use them, or you can go to random.org/dice. And I'm going to roll dice. And now I have a number, 44333. I'm going to do this just 3 times. 52616. I know that watching someone roll dice is really exciting, but just bear with me. And then we have 35346. Okay, so I've got 3 numbers that I've written down. And now I'm going to my next tab, which is a word list from EFF, the Electronic Frontier Foundation. They're an organization that does a lot, including educating people on privacy. First string of numbers, 44333. So I have petroleum. Okay, I'm going to write that down. And then my next string of numbers is 52616. Salutary. Okay, and then I've got 35346. Kerosene. This is interesting. Okay, so now my password is petroleum, salutary, kerosene. And I might keep rolling until I have even a longer password. I've done this. Usually I do mine that are 5 words long, but you can uh, choose however you want to do it. The longer is the better. Um, and you can also rearrange your words to make a phrase that's more memorable to you, maybe something that you can imagine in your mind. You can come up with a little story about it. So maybe I have, I don't know, there's like a conference of combustibles and petroleum is saying hi to kerosene. So that's my little story about my password. You can also add numbers and capital letters if you'd like to make it more complex. That might make it harder to remember, but maybe you could do it in a systematic way that makes sense to you and that you remember. So this is passphrases or diceware. And I'm going to show you one more tactic for creating complex passwords that you can actually remember. So I call this complicating phrases. I call it that. I didn't come up with this strategy for the record. So this strategy is you think of your favorite poem, a song lyric, an inside joke, maybe a story your friends and you love to tell, and you turn it into gibberish. So I have 2 song lyrics here that I thought were seasonally appropriate because it's October. So the first one by the Smashing Pumpkins, which is why I have a dog with a pumpkin. It's not just random, is Shakedown 1979, Cool Kids Never Have the Time. And to turn that into gobbledygook, so you can see now it's Shakedown 1979 slash capital CKNHTT. Or then we've got Stevie Wonder, very superstitious writings on the wall. And I've just used some of the initials, some of the punctuation, and I've added a 13 because it's a superstitious song. This tactic is strong because it's created from things that are personal to you, phrases that you can remember, and then also hopefully substitutions that you can remember because you're the one who made them. So using a slash as a line break, for example, made sense to me. So those are my 2 tactics, and now I want to show you how strong they are. I want to illustrate how strong they are. So we are here now at a website called security.org, and they have this password strength test. I trust this website, but I still do not recommend putting any of your actual passwords in it, just as a good security practice, but it's a good way to sort of test a style of password. Okay, so first, let's just write a password in here. Um, this is a computer. It would take oh, I did capitalize the P just like reflexively. So apparently it would take a computer 22 minutes to crack that password. I actually think this one is even less because password is such a common password, but that shows you how easy it is to crack a single dictionary word. Let's do princess. That was on the list of popular ones. So princess would be cracked instantly. And that's interesting. I didn't capitalize the P in princess, although I did in password by accident. So you can see even adding a single capital letter to extremely common password made it at least 22 minutes stronger. Okay, now let's try let's try the passphrase that I created. So I'm not going to capitalize anything. I'm just going to say petroleum salutary kerosene. So that would take a computer approximately 100 quadrillion years to crack. So that's significantly more stronger. Now let's try one of my complicated phrases. So I'm going to do shakedown 1979 slash CKNHTT. So that will take 100 quintillion years to crack. So you can see just how much stronger it is to have these very long, very complicated, and unpredictable passwords. So I hope I've convinced you, and I hope one of these is something you feel like will actually work for you. So just two more things before I close. So probably you have two-factor authentication on some of your accounts because some websites force you to. Um, and what it is it's adding an extra layer of security in addition to your password. So you have something that you know, which is your password, and something that you have. Typically, that's your phone. There are a few other ways to do it. So this is when you're trying to log into a website, you enter your password, and the website says, okay, we've texted you a code, now enter that code. Or maybe one thing I know Gmail does is if you're logging in, you'll have to open the app on your phone and say, yes, it's me, or tap a number or something like that. So this is an additional layer of security because you can imagine if someone gets your password to something, if they don't have your phone, they still cannot get into your account. So this is something I encourage you to do on basically any account that will let you, but certainly your more sensitive accounts like a bank account or email, social media, anything you want to protect. And there is a website, twofactor.org. Um, It'll give you more information about setting this up if you have questions about it and ways to see if different accounts have it. Okay, so one more thing before we have time for questions, and that is I promised there was a way to forget all of your passwords except for one, and that's a password manager. Um, it can be tempting to store passwords in your browser or on a piece of paper, but both of those come with security risks. So if you have concerns about remembering all of your passwords, a password manager is uh, a good option. Um, this is more than I can, go into depth on in this brief program, but basically password managers are like a vault with all of your account information. And when you are logging into a website, the password manager will work in your browser in the background and recognize, oh, okay, Karina is trying to log into her Google account, and it will just populate the information for me. I never have to know my password. Um, Password managers also, I think most of them will generate a very secure password for you, so you can forget everything I just said, and then store it for you as well. Some also have ways to share passwords among different people who have accounts. If, for example, your spouse and you need to have access to the same account for something. There are a lot of different password managers. Some are free, some are paid. Some of them have different features. Some are very beginner friendly, some are more expert level. And so there's two places I recommend you search. I know that Wirecutter, which is free from the New York Times, and Consumer Reports, which you can get for free through the library, both have password manager comparisons. So that's if you're interested in more, we can maybe talk about it in the Q&A, but also if you're deciding on which one is right for you, that would be helpful. So Finally, that is the end of the presentation.